Hello, my friends around the world. Thanks for joining me here at JP's Path of Awareness. So appreciate you all, and going to continue on here with Consciousness Unfolding by Joel S. Goldsmith. And this will be Chapter 4, Science of Creation. As we just take that moment of pause to feel this omnipresence, to know that it is the life. It is our body. It is our business. It's the sole identity of everything and everyone. That's the true science. But Joel starts here. We never attempt anything without meditation. We never begin any work without going into the depths of our being to make conscious contact with God. We are one with God. I and my Father are one. But that oneness is of no help to us, except in the degree of our realization of it. There must be a conscious awareness of our oneness. This does not mean merely declaring, I and my Father are one. Stating or affirming it while we are grabbing our hat and coat to rush downtown. Something happens to us when we go within and make the contact for that feel of the presence. It is an experience as vibrant and alive as an electric contact. In our humanhood, we are cut off from the source. That is what constitutes humanhood, a selfhood apart from God, a selfhood separate from God. But humanhood is a dream. We are never really separate from God, even though the effect on us is the same as if we were. To rise above humanhood, that is, above the experience of a human being, and human events, it becomes necessary, actually, for us to feel that we have God within our own being, to make a God contact. For that reason, in all my writings, you will find that attention is called to the necessity of beginning with this conscious awareness in the morning and continuing with it throughout the day until sleep comes at night, abiding constantly in the consciousness of the presence of God. Heretofore, we have for the most part been satisfied to learn something of truth from a book, or to make some affirmations. From this time on, that will not suffice. At some time during the day and during the night, you must make this conscious contact with the inner being, which we call God. Then for the rest of the night, you can abide in that, but make that contact. Make it a reality. In proportion as you consciously make that contact, your life will be rebuilt. In proportion as you learn to turn within before undertaking anything, whether it is writing, cooking, speaking, shopping, regardless of what it may be, if you actually practice this turning within and making the contact, Your outer experience will be permeated with the Spirit, with divine wisdom, with divine guidance, protection, safety, and security. The human world finds safety and security in dollars or in armaments. We find our safety and security in our contact with God. We find that contact manifesting itself outwardly in whatever form is necessary to our daily experience. It may appear outwardly as anything from dollar bills to houses or automobiles, but we take no thought for anything external. Our entire thought is on contacting this infinite being, this infinite reality, this divine presence that is within us. Jesus called it the Father and the Father within. He told us very clearly that it is your Father as well as His Father. Therefore, it was within Him. It must be within us. If it was within Him, it must be within us. What good is it to have a Father within if we do not turn to it? Read the story of the prodigal. He had a rich father too, but he did not turn to his father. He turned to himself and ended up with the pigs. Our entire faith, confidence, and hope must be in that prayer which Paul called the Christ that liveth in me. Be assured, however, that merely saying that the Christ liveth in me will not bring it forth. You must contact it. Do not think that you can be in and of the world and yet receive the divine light flowing to you from within. But when you have made your contact with the source, then you can go about your business. As one approach to the making of that contact, try to meditate upon the reality of being. Then turn within and rest. See what message comes to you from within. Never for a moment doubt, but that you will receive an answer to your prayer or meditation. We look into the hills, from whence cometh our help. We look to the hills or to the heights of consciousness. We look up within our own being. We look up to the highest point of our own consciousness for help in every circumstance. We never look outside or beyond the limits of our own being. Consciousness forms the body. God created all that was made. That God is divine, infinite consciousness, the consciousness of individual being. That consciousness created your body, your home, your business. Everything of which you are aware is the emanation, expression, and manifestation of your consciousness. The consciousness which is God. Now what happens to us in the human picture? We feed the body which was created by divine consciousness. We feed it from the outside. And because of our acceptance of the universal belief that the body is fed from without, we feel that it requires vitamins, calories, or something added to it from without. Do you remember when we were talking about supply? We came to the conclusion that supply, even in the form of money, must be as spiritual as the supply of truth itself. We also concluded that we could go within our own consciousness and find truth. Then we turn around and accept the belief that we must go outside for money. If it were true that there is a material universe, or, in other words, that there is a spiritual universe plus a material universe, then it would follow that we could go within our own being for the spiritual things of life, but that we would have to go outside for the material things. That is not true. The truth is that God is spirit, and that God created this universe out of its own being. All that God created is good. All that God created is spiritual substance and reality. Therefore, our body must be as spiritual as the consciousness of which it is formed. It must therefore be possible for our body to be fed from within instead of from without. If mortal sense tells us that we are underfed and undernourished, or that there is a deterioration of this piece of body or that piece of body, even a bone of the body, it must be possible to renew it through consciousness, which is the substance of our being, rather than by adding to the body from without. The only thing which prevents this from happening in our individual acceptance of a matter I and a matter you, which results in our accepting as law the human belief that we are fed from without. Everything in the teaching of the Infinite Way is an unfoldment, a statement or restatement of the teaching of the Master, Christ Jesus. When the disciples came to him and said, "Master, we have food for you," he answered, "I have meat to eat that ye know not of." What he meant was that he was being fed from within. Consciousness, spirit, life itself formed this thing that we call our body, your body and my body. That spirit, that substance, is the meat and nourishes it. When we reverse the universal belief that we are being fed from without, that the food we are taking into our system is nourishing the body, and when we consciously accept the truth that we are fed from within, that the consciousness that formed the body is feeding and maintaining and sustaining it unto eternity, then we shall find the body is responding to spiritual law. You may still go on eating, although of one thing I am certain, your appetite will change. You will desire a different type of food, or less of certain foods. Why? Because no one can eat when he is filled, and you will be filled when you are drawing on spiritual food from within. 24 hours a day. We require the amount of food we do because we are not being fed from within. God, Spirit, Divine Consciousness is the creative principle of our body, as well as of our business, of our home, and of our social activities. God is the Divine Consciousness of our being, the substance of our being, and the law of our being. But we must turn within in order to start the flow that we, as human beings, have reversed. Humanly, the body goes on for 70 years and 10, but long after the 60 years and 10 are reached, it begins to deteriorate. The food from without does not do quite a complete job of feeding, sustaining, and renewing it. Therefore, even though we attempt to renew it by means of the food we eat, the body responds only 70 or 80%, continuing to waste away until it is ready for the grave. That will always be true in the human picture. Only you, individually, and I, individually, can reverse that picture so that our body will function eternally, if we so desire it, and in the same state of perfection in which it was at the height of our youth and vitality. We determine that in this moment. We do it by consciously reversing the belief that the body is being fed and sustained from without by the food we eat, and by accepting the spiritual truth that the same consciousness that formed the body is now feeding it, nourishing it, maintaining it, sustaining it, and renewing it unto eternity. This must be a conscious process. It must become an activity of your consciousness, because consciousness is the creative principle of life. Immediately the question arises, are you talking about the material body? And the answer is that you do not have a material body. How could God create a material body? God is spirit. God is consciousness. God is the creative principle of this universe. And God, the infinite, must create out of its own being that which you have been calling a material body, treating as if it were a material body. Feeding, clothing, and bathing is your spiritual body. The only thing material about the body is our erroneous concept of it. And that erroneous concept did not begin with you or with me. It is a universal belief, a universal concept that we individually have accepted. How could Jesus have walked through walls or on the water? How could Peter have walked on the water? How could any of the miracles have been performed? And these miracles were not only performed by Jesus, but by many of the great prophets. Moses brought manna out of the sky and water out of a rock. How about Elijah and Elisha? What about Moses and the burning bush? How could there have been a burning bush that did not burn? If this were a material universe, in ignorance, we have accepted the universal belief. Just as our ancestors accepted the belief that the world was flat. It was not flat, yet the belief that the world was flat caused people to act as if it were, and held them in bondage to a flat world, just as if such a belief had been true. The same sort of thing is operating with us. We are in bondage to the belief that we have a mortal, human, material body. That is why we are not walking through walls. But it is not for us to try to walk through walls. We can make higher demonstrations than that. To illustrate, there is a story concerning a Hindu who had been trying for many years to become spiritual. Finally, he came running to his master saying elatedly, "Master, I have done a marvelous thing. I have walked all the way across the river on the water. And just think, it took me 30 years to accomplish it." The master's dry response was, You could have crossed on the boat for 2 pennies. Such a feat was no miracle. In like manner, do not study for the purpose of learning how to walk through walls or on the water. No, there is something far more important that we should do. We should live to be 90 or 100 years of age, looking as if we were 25. That is one thing we can do. But we will not do this by sitting around hoping or by looking at the person who has accomplished it and saying, I should love to be like that. The body is maintained by consciousness. You must begin to understand the law of creation. God is your individual consciousness, and therefore it is your individual consciousness that is creating, feeding, nourishing, supporting, and maintaining your body in its health, harmony, and beauty unto all time, if you so desire it, unto all time, if you will but consciously realize that you are being fed, maintained, and sustained from within. If you do this, so will it be unto you. You may be inclined to ask, is that important? Yes. It is the most important part of your entire development. There is only one thing important in this world, and that is showing forth God as our life, as our substance, as our safety, our security, our immortality, our eternality, proving that God is the only law unto our being. If it is true that God is the only law unto our being, and that we are God-governed, God-maintained, and God-supported, then we should show it forth as youth, beauty, vitality, strength, intelligence, health, and all the other divine qualities. In other words, is there any virtue in preaching this truth and then showing forth the opposite? There is none. None. Students have no right to go to the rest of the world and say, you ought to study metaphysics. You ought to turn to God, and themselves show forth such a lack of awareness as to cause the world to retort, why? By their fruits you shall know them. Ask yourself, am I showing forth the highest demonstration of which I am capable? If not, is it not true that it is only because you are not sufficiently bringing this truth into conscious expression? In other words, are we not all sitting around believing there is a God somewhere who is going to do something for us? Let God do it. In proportion to our lack of demonstration, do we indicate that we are not consciously bringing this into our experience? That we are not consciously renewing the body day by day, and we never will, so long as we think of nourishment as entering the body through the mouth. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth. It is not that which goes in that feeds us. It is that which comes out of the issues of the heart, the soul, or consciousness, which is our food. Our demonstration is in proportion to our conscious awareness of the truth of being. Health is not accidental. Harmony is not accidental. It may be out in the human world, where there are some human beings who are healthy all the time, or most of the time. Actually, such human beings are few and far between. Furthermore, we know nothing of what goes on in their consciousness to account for it, or what their pre-existent consciousness may have brought forth for them. This we know. If we want harmony, peace, jurisdiction, or dominion, we shall have to bring it into our experience through the conscious knowing of the truth. We must fulfill the words of the Master. Know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. We must not depend on the truth to make us free. We must depend on our conscious awareness of that truth. We have embarked on a mission, the realization of God as divine consciousness unfolding as our individual being. We shall have to take the next step and realize that this body is maintained and sustained by the infinite consciousness that formed it, the divine consciousness of our being. We are eternally being fed, not 3 times a day, but 24 hours of every day from within. John 8. I have meat to eat that ye know not of. John 4. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit, and they are life. The word consciousness is life eternal. It is your consciousness. It is your consciousness as life eternal, since God is the universal consciousness of immortal being. When we dispel the universal belief in the deterioration of organs, functions, or bone structure, we are renewed. Why? Because we do not have a physical body to be patched up. And the realization that that consciousness, which we are, constructed the body, functions as a renewal of the body. That consciousness will continue to keep the body in its original form, substance, youth, and beauty. Spiritual healing, the mission of the Master. The ministry of the Master was spiritual healing. It did not make any difference whether it was a person with deformed bones or a person whose organs had ceased to function in what we call death. His ministry was to restore consciousness, just as the Christ of your consciousness is present to restore even the years of the locusts. That part of the body which already is dead or dying must be renewed by the Christ, by the state of consciousness, which has been revealed to you as the substance of your being. Let us go back to the beginning of this chapter, to the statement that we never undertake anything without first going within. Without that contact, that is, without meditation. If we truly expect that contact to come forth in the form of whatever is necessary for our demonstration, can it not come forth in the form of a body, organ, function, or home, or bone? If it can come forth in the form of transportation or companionship or supply, Why should it not come forth as body? It will come forth in every conceivable form necessary to the fulfillment of the messianic mission, which is life eternal. The mission of the Master was to reveal life eternal to you and to me. Through what process? Through the process of a conscious awareness of truth, knowing the truth. So must we, through that same Christ consciousness, renew and restore the organs and functions of our body. We can do that only in the degree that we realize that consciousness, God, is the substance of our form, and that we are fed, nourished, supported, maintained, and sustained from within. That is true of our body. It is true of the substance of our business and of the substance of our home. We can be ever renewed, ever fresh, ever refilled with divine energy if we knowingly contact that source of our being, which is God, our individual consciousness. Pay particular attention to these statements of the Master. I have meat ye know not of. The water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. This consciousness within your own being will spring up within you as eternal life. Not eternal life after the body lies in the grave, but eternal life right here and now. Conscious eternality, immortality in this form. We are renewing the body now, day by day, in the understanding of the truth that God is spirit, and that, therefore, the creative principle is spiritual. That which is created is spiritually self-supporting, self-sustaining, and self-maintaining. That is the eternal wellspring of water and the meat that the outer world knows nothing of. In going within to meditate, in order to touch that reality of our being, let us consciously realize that every time we touch this spirit, this spring within, new life comes flowing forth. It makes the flesh vital, firm, and strong, because it is permeated with life from within. Consciousness does it, the consciousness which is God. Treatment as silent listening. When we are in the silence, that is a treatment. That is the type of treatment we give to every circumstance that arises in our experience, one by one, whether or not it is a problem of body, business, home relations, or some phase of health. We must hold to that type of treatment. Not in the sense of a formula, not in the sense of making up a great many statements, but in the sense of letting the divine consciousness tell us what the truth is. A treatment must not consist of sitting down and going through a ritual of making statements about truth. A treatment must be a turning to the Father within, asking, what is the truth about business, about body, about health, about my neighbor, about the universal belief of war? And then letting the divine consciousness tell it to you. Never believe that reading truth, memorizing it, or reciting it will produce the effect you seek. These serve merely as a means to an end. You yourself must go within and let the divine consciousness give you a treatment. You do not give the treatment. You receive the treatment from the soul. It is clear now that everything has come from within, even the treatment. A treatment is an impartation from within, and not lip service. Treatment is necessary so long as we are in ignorance, or so long as we are being handled by universal beliefs. In the degree that we are suffering from any form of sin, sickness, lack, or limitation, we need treatments, but not treatment from without. The treatment must be from within. Then you will find that that treatment is substance, is power, and is law. Have you not wondered sometimes, after you have remembered some of these made-up statements and faithfully repeated and repeated and repeated them, why you did not get the health, the harmony, or the wealth you expected from them? Those statements were external to you. You were stuffing sawdust into a doll. You were stuffing yourself with a made-up sawdust treatment. Our treatment does not consist of made-up thoughts. Our treatment is a treatment of peace. It is a treatment of consciousness expressing itself. It comes entirely and directly out of meditation, and in that degree will it bring results. It will bear fruit in healings and improved health. You must bring out the right sense of treatment. Banish the idea of treatment by formula, and eliminate the idea that treatment can come out of books, or that you can use and repeat any treatment. That is found in my writings or recordings. Treatment is powerful only when it comes through with all the power of God behind it. Treatment must come from the center within, from the divine consciousness of you. Then it is substance. Then it is feeding you, supporting you, maintaining you, and prospering you. You do not give a treatment, you receive it. And you do not receive it from a man or a woman. You receive the treatment from God. God utters, voices, declares itself from the center of your being to your conscious awareness. Then that treatment is a creative principle. If something comes through spiritually from God, it will renew you. You will be reborn and you will die daily to the flesh. And by this I do not mean passing on. I mean that you will lose mortality and gain immortality here and now. You will lose old age and gain youth. You will lose decayed flesh and find it renewed. If the treatment comes from within, if it has the substance of truth, if it comes from out of consciousness to you. Note to active workers. When a practitioner is very active in this practice, he many times finds that he does not feel well. Either he feels actual physical pain, distress, sickness, headaches, and the like, or he has depressed or discouraged feelings. All degrees of negative reactions may be experienced at different times. I do not mean that a practitioner suffers this continuously, but he is likely to awaken either in the morning or at night with symptoms of disease or distress, or even to feel these in the middle of the day. The first temptation is to ask, "What is wrong with me? This should not be happening to me." Let me caution workers about such a reaction. These symptoms are not really yours. They are caused by someone who is hammering at you for help, and you are not recognizing it. You are accepting the word "I" and taking all this in as if you yourself were sick. Be alert to this. Everyone who has been in this work knows that there are people reaching out to him mentally, day and night, and sometimes crying out to him. If you're not alert, you will take it personally and react to the negative emotion or feeling. If practitioners are not careful to hold up that word "I," they may think as I, they may think of I as Jane, Jim, or Joel, not recognizing that when these negative things come to us, they indicate that others are reaching out for help. To active workers, I say, please remember, first, keep that word "I" in its rightful place. Every time you think the word "I," automatically know that you are thinking about God. Second, realize always that the call for help is not to you. It is not a call to your human understanding. That call for help is to your developed state of consciousness, that state of consciousness which does the healing work. Those who are reaching out to it do not care about Jane, Jim, or Joel. All they care about is to reach that developed state of consciousness, which is a healing consciousness. They do not care from whom or through whom the healing comes. If we had the ability, we could turn back to Jesus Christ, to the mind that was in Christ Jesus, and through that find healing. We do not do so only because we perhaps think that the interval of years separates us from that mind, not realizing that the mind of Christ Jesus is here and is our mind. Active workers, whether you are healing, teaching, lecturing, or writing, please remember that somebody, somewhere is reaching out to you. As that someone touches your human mentality, you may feel a drag on you. What some might call transference of thought may even occur, so that you believe that you are sick, whereas it is the person calling out, telling you that he is in need of help. All the very first signs of illness, discouragement, or fear, be alert and realize that someone is reaching out to the Christ, not to any human identity or mentality. He is seeking the Christ of his own being, and that Christ is responding, "No, this suggestion of malpractice cannot use my mind for its operation or outlet." Be alert to these conditions. Never must a practitioner identify his personal selfhood with the practice. It is the Christ that is the practitioner, and it is the Christ that is handling the practice. It is not a person. Practitioners will be dragged down if they let themselves be drawn upon as human beings, or if they do not recognize that these negative things coming to them are only the pull of patience and the pull of the world on them. Instead of looking at the human world and trying to change it, sit back and get at one with spirit. Try to catch the vision of what the spiritual universe or spiritual activity is. In other words, do not try to think of the person who has the cold or try to help him to get rid of it. Inasmuch as the cold has no reality, there is no use trying to get rid of it. But so long as it presents itself as an appearance, certainly something must be done about it. That something is to get at one with the infinite, with spirit, with soul, and watch reality unfolding. Watch the real truth, the real being come to light. The idea is to stop fighting this world picture. Stop fighting the atom dream. Stop fighting illusion. Sit down and get at peace, and let the reality unfold and disclose itself. That's the end of chapter 4. As yes, you so have to impersonalize this truth. It's never you. It's the Christ, truth, that is doing the work. And those who are seeking that truth are not seeking a person or a treatment. They're seeking that Christ identity, that soul identity, the purity, the innocence, where they have never been touched by this so-called world of mortality. You all have that. It's just us continuing to magnify that awareness that that's the only reality of this whole universe. Spirit within. Again, thanks very much for joining me, and thanks for the new members. And look forward to chatting with you directly if we can. Send me a message, and look forward to talking more in the group chats. Talk soon.